Welcome back to Keep It Raw Boxing, and welcome back to another edition of Fight Night Rewind. Let's get into it. Let's get into the biggest fight this weekend, which was, of course, Oleksandr Usyk versus Tony Bellew for the Undisputed Cruiserweight Championship of the world. First of all, congratulations to Oleksandr Usyk, who put on a really good performance, and also shout out to Tony Bellew, who despite his best efforts, wasn't good enough on the night. But he still came to fight, and he tried his very best, of course. And you know what? Shout out to him for that. Now, this video ain't just going to be about, the fight itself. I am going to talk about the fight and how I saw the fight, but I'm probably going to point out some things that I feel are classed as home truths when it comes to Tony Bellew. So before I get into all that sort of stuff, I kind of just want to say that in my heart, of course, I wanted Tony Bellew to win tonight. Naturally, he's a British fighter. Why would I not want to see him succeed? Yeah. So yes, I wanted to see him win tonight, but in my head, I did pick Oleksandr Usyk. I just knew Oleksandr Usyk would win tonight, and I was kind of hoping that Tony might be able to land. In my heart, I was hoping he'll probably land that perfect punch and maybe cause an upset, but I was picking Oleksandr Usyk to win this fight. So this isn't some sort of hate videos, because I know what people are like out there. People are so sensitive nowadays, when you're talking about the sport and you're talking about their favorite fighters and stuff like that, they start calling you a hater and stuff like that. So I don't want people to start thinking that I'm hating on Tony Bellew. I'm just giving it to you real from my point of view, and that's as simple as I can put it. Okay, so let's quickly talk about the fight itself. Look, Tony Bellew started off really, really well. I gave him the first 4 rounds of the fight. And then I felt from the 5th round, Oleksandr Usyk just took over, in my opinion. Yeah, there were signs of where he was starting to come into the fight in the 3rd and the 4th, but I felt Tony edged it in those rounds and won those rounds. So I felt the first 4 rounds, yes, Tony did really well. Great movement, great feints, trying to set traps. He was landing that right hand of his more effectively, cleaner and harder than any other punches that were coming back from Oleksandr Usyk. Usyk was still trying to find the range, was still trying to establish his jab and find his rhythm, and I felt Tony took advantage of that in those earlier rounds. And I definitely felt Tony won those first 4 rounds, but then I felt Usyk would, from the 5th round onwards, just took over. His class showed through. I felt definitely from the 5th round onwards, Tony Bellew started to gas out. He started to gas. He used up so much energy in those first 4 rounds, and I'm going to talk about that in a bit more detail as well. But that played into the hands of Oleksandr Usyk, and Oleksandr Usyk was probably kind of prepared for that and thinking, well, he's going to come at me the first 3 or 4 rounds. He said that himself in his ring interview, that that's what he was preparing for. He knew he was going to come at him because Tony Bellew had nothing to lose, and I felt that definitely played into the hands of Usyk, and Usyk just systematically started to break down Tony Bellew. He wasn't getting punches in terms of straight shots, Usyk, so he started to loop his punches around Tony's guard and his reach, and started to land body shots, head shots, etc. and stuff like that. And then eventually the knockout came in the 8th round. But in the early parts of the round, Tony was doing pretty well, I have to admit. He kind of surprised me. There's occasions where he was outboxing Usyk, but you got to remember, with someone like Usyk, with intelligent, technical boxers like Usyk, the thing they do is that the first 3 to 4 rounds, they download and process information of their opponent. Yeah, they analyze what's in front of them. They throw probing jabs out. They'll throw a probing punch out, a straight right, okay, to see how their opponent reacts to certain things. What do they do in those situations? And then they start putting the pieces together and start figuring out the puzzle. And once they've done that, off they go. And that's exactly what happened. I felt in this fight. I felt Usyk in the first 3 to 4 rounds was downloading and processing information, analyzing his opponent, kind of working out what he does in certain situations. And once he worked that out and he figured out Tony Bellew's rhythm, he took it from there. And from the 5th round onwards, I think Usyk just showed his class, and the knockout was beautiful. The stoppage was they were right to stop the fight. There was no doubt about that. Because you could see it in Tony Bellew's face. Like in that 8th round, you saw it in his face. He was wilting. And when that knockout happened, you saw the look on his face when he was on the canvas. The fight just needs to be stopped. So I just think, what? Shout out to Tony Bellew. Gave it his best, but wasn't good enough on the night. Oleksandr Usyk, you know, showed his class, and, you know, congratulations to him. You know, I look forward to seeing more from Oleksandr Usyk, no doubt about it. He's definitely turning into one of my favourite characters. He's a very funny individual as well, you know, in the build-up of the fight and stuff like that. I put loads of stuff on Instagram and things that he was doing. So, you know what, I look forward to seeing more from Oleksandr Usyk going forward, of course. Now, this is the part that any die-hard Tony Bellew fan or crazy British boxing fanboys, etc. aren't gonna like. You know, this is the bit where I'm gonna talk about Tony Bellew and his career, and kind of talk about, you know, preparations for this fight and things that may have affected Tony Bellew in this fight as well. First of all, Oleksandr Usyk is only the second elite level champion, in prime champion, that Tony Bellew has ever faced in his career. The first one was Adonis Stevenson at light heavyweight. Okay, and we know what happened there. Adonis Stevenson put Tony Bellew on ice in 6 rounds. Yeah, and then years later, time goes by, and then his final fight of his career, he goes up against another elite level in prime champion in Oleksandr Usyk. All right, you're gonna struggle in fights like this if you're not continuously fighting the best level of opponents throughout your career. Yeah, if you want to get great, if you want to be great at what you do, if you want to be consistently, you know, great at what you do, no matter what you're doing, boxing or whatever, yeah, you have to go up against the best. You have to test yourself against the best, because that's how you learn and that's how you develop. Unfortunately for Tony Bellew, he's not had enough fights like these in his career. All his title wins have come via vacant title challenges. Yeah, from British, I believe the British title he won was a vacant title. The Commonwealth belt was a vacant title. The world title was also a vacant title fight. You know, he's never legitimately gone up against a real champion and beat a real champion, and he's ever fought 2. So that's point 1. Yeah. If you want to go up against Oleksandr Usyk, likes of Oleksandr Usyk, and, you know, beat him, then throughout your career you would have had to have fought that kind of level of opponent, and he hasn't done that, in my opinion. So that's one thing that was against him tonight, that was for sure, in my opinion. Yeah. So what I'm basically saying here is that Tony Bellew lacks the experience to fight and beat an elite level in prime champion like Oleksandr Usyk, because he hasn't done it often enough. He hasn't taken on enough top contenders, etc. and stuff like that. He hasn't, let's be honest. Yeah. Then you got to think about what has he been doing for the last few years. He's been sitting around at heavyweight, right? He's had 2 fights against David Haye, and let's be honest, David Haye was shot to pieces. Let's be honest, you know, I don't want to take anything away from Tony and stuff like that. Don't give me wrong, credit for getting his wins against the version of David Haye he did fight, but a David Haye that was shot to pieces. Yeah, he never fought anyone else at heavyweight. Let's be honest, yeah, any top name of fighters like even taking on likes of a Dillian Whyte or someone like that, he didn't do it. Yeah, he sat around there, you know, getting fat, eating what he wanted to, walking around at whatever weight he wanted to walk around at. Yeah. And you know what? Not testing himself as a fighter. Then the next thing happens, which is he then starts saying, he gets called out by Oleksandr Usyk. He accepts the fight, right? But at the same time, he's now got to bring himself down to cruiserweight. Now, from what I understand, I think he lost something like 35 pounds for this fight. That takes a lot of toll on your body, no matter what you say. It doesn't matter if he comfortably, you know, cut the weight and got down to the weight. It will affect you on the night in the ring. Yeah, when you're taking punches, when you're using up energy. Yeah, that at that age, at his age, what is it? What, mid-30s or something like that? At that age, it's going to take a toll on your body to, in a 12-week period, to cut off that so much weight and weight drain yourself to go down to cruiserweight. Yeah, it's going to have its effect on you. To walk your punch resistance, which clearly showed tonight, let's be honest. Yeah, your stamina, your endurance, which again showed tonight again. Yeah, which then affects your ability to compete against this elite level champion. You know, he was better off hand-picking opponent at heavyweight, and like he did with David Haye, and then retiring. You know, but look, don't get me wrong, hats off for him for trying to, you know, go down to cruiserweight and take on Oleksandr Usyk. I'm not trying to take anything away from the guy, but facts are facts. Yeah, everything was against Tony Bellew. Yeah, even coming down in weight, the whole preparation for the fight, no matter how well he prepared with David Caldwell, his trainer. End of the day, that weight loss was going to affect him in the ring, and it did. It affected his stamina, his endurance, his punch resistance. Yeah, which effectively, you know, as when he got to those middle rounds, he was barely throwing a punch, and he was just sitting on the ropes, sitting in the corners, and it was easy from that point on for Oleksandr Usyk to just start teeing off and pick him apart, systematically break him down, and eventually knocking him out. And the thing is, when you're not fighting top competition, and you're just sitting around at a very heavy weight, and then suddenly you cut all this weight and you go up against one of the elite level fighters in the world at this moment of time, you know, you're going to pay the price. And that's exactly what happened here tonight with Tony Bellew. He paid the price for that. He hasn't consistently throughout his career gone up against the best. And that's the problem. And when he has gone up against the best, yeah, let's be honest, he gets beat. Sorry to say that, but it's the truth. You know, a lot of people are bragging about what a great career he's had. I don't see a great career. I think he's had a career where he's had a couple of great opportunities and not been able to capitalize on those great opportunities because he hasn't been consistent. You know, that's the way I've seen Tony Bellew's career. He's not going to be remembered as a great British fighter, in my opinion. That's just the way I see it. He's not going to be. From my point of view, people can disagree with me if they want, but that's the way I see it. He's not going to be. You know, he's going to be seen as a brave individual at times, but in terms of choices he's made in his career, probably not smart. Because I feel like his career's been mapped out for him in a way where it can make it look like he's achieved great things, but he hasn't. Because he hasn't gone up against the best level fighters or opponents. And, you know, in the day, that showed in the ring tonight against Oleksandr Usyk. It did. The other thing I quickly want to touch on is, like, sometimes he's over emotional in the ring. He lets his emotions get the best of him. We saw that tonight. You know, was it the second round where he started throwing his hands down a little bit and saying, come on, fight me? That kind of, you know how Tony Bellew does it. You know what I mean? He was like, come on, engage me. Let's go. Let's have a tear up. You know, those moments, that saps, you know, the energy out of you as well. Those sort of little moments where you're wasting energy, needlessly wasting your energy in situations like that. Plus, every punch he was throwing tonight was literally a hard punch and a haymaker in a sense at times, where he's just trying to land that big power punch to knock out Oleksandr Usyk. And when you're doing that as well, and you've cut all that weight, and you're using all this energy moving around the ring, etc., you know what? You're going to pay the price, and that's exactly what happened tonight. And personally, I think, you know what? Tony Bellew, I've got nothing against the guy. Don't get me wrong. I don't agree with everything he says in his interviews and stuff at times. Sometimes I agree with a lot of things he says, and sometimes I don't. So I've got nothing against the guy, and shout out to him for trying to make an effort tonight, you know, but the odds were stacked against him in the day. So respect him for that much, but I'm not going to sit here and start saying, oh, he's this great fighter and this great British champion and etc. I'm not going to, because his career, when you look at his box record, it doesn't state that. It doesn't show that. You know? Instead of moving up to heavyweight to fight David Haye, why didn't you take on the rest of the cruiserweight division? Why didn't you hold on to your WBC position in cruiserweight as a cruiserweight champion and enter the World Boxing Super Series? You know, if he had done those sort of things and then came out on the other side as the winner of the tournament, or took on all the cruiserweight champions at that time and then became the undisputed champion, you know, of the cruiserweight division, then I would turn around and say, man, he's achieved a great thing there. That's a great fighter. But I can't give him that accolade, you know, because he hasn't done that throughout his career. He hasn't done it at all. Look, I don't want to really go on and on about this. I just wanted to make a few points. I thought, look, it was a really good fight tonight. Congratulations again to Oleksandr Usyk. You know, shout out to Tony Bellew for his efforts. I think the best thing for him is to retire now. He's made enough money in his last few fights. He says, you know, he's invested a lot of money in property, so he's made smart investments. Hopefully that will secure him and the family going forward from here on out. Wish him all the best in retirement, but I definitely think he needs to stay in retirement. I think he knows that as well. You know, he's done, definitely, for sure. But you know what? Good luck to Tony Bellew in his retirement, and I really am looking forward to see what Oleksandr Usyk does next, and you know, how he progresses with his career from here on out. Look, like as always, guys, like, share, and subscribe. And remember, this is Cypherbox reminding you to keep it real.